Hey friends, today I'm sharing a story that's full of emotion, twists, and truth. Stick around, you won't want to miss the ending. Ready? Let's dive in. I'm Selena. A name barely whispered when guests came by. I was always the extra, the background player in my brother Ryan's performance. He was the star, the chosen one who, according to them, was destined for greatness. I was told to stay quiet, dress more normal, and not make the family look bad. And I did. Until I didn't. In college, I scraped by with freelance design jobs, living off instant noodles and tap water. Meanwhile, every dime my parents had went into Ryan's endless ventures, which always failed, yet somehow left him with new toys, vacations, and applause. What did I get? A second-hand vacuum cleaner for my birthday. Still I stayed silent. Out loud anyway. And don't forget, if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. By the time I was 28, I owned a penthouse that overlooked the city. Earned it, every inch. But I never bragged. I never expected applause. My parents never even asked where I lived. To them, I was still the artsy afterthought. Then came Ryan's wedding. It was supposed to be intimate, just close friends and family. But when my parents found out my penthouse was near the venue, their plans shifted. "We'll do the bridal prep at your place," my mother said, like it was already settled. I looked her in the eye. "No, it's my home." My father's expression hardened. "So now you think you're better than us?" "No," I replied. "I just finally realized I'm not beneath you either." In front of everyone, the planner, the caterers, and Ryan, who stayed silent, my father struck me. A slap that echoed louder than any of their words. My head rang. My heart pounded. But something inside me stayed firm. They left shouting, blaming me for ruining Ryan's big moment. That was when it clicked. I was never their daughter in their eyes. I was an asset. Backup plan. Spare bedroom. That evening, as I looked out over the city from my balcony, I made a promise to myself. If they only remembered me when they needed something, then I'd make sure this moment stayed unforgettable. I didn't cry. Not out of courage, but out of something sharper. Understanding. Something didn't break in me that night. Forged, like steel over flame. All my life, I tried to earn their love by being small, polite, quiet. Maybe if I looked right, acted right, kept my success humble, they'd finally be proud. But standing there, surrounded by everything I'd built alone, I finally saw the truth. They didn't want me to shine. They just wanted me to serve. And Ryan to shine on my dime. So I stepped back, blocked their numbers, let silence speak. And when the apologies started trickling in, if you can call them that, my mother's words said it all. "Let's not make a scene. Everyone says things when they're stressed." Not a word about the slap. Not even a simple sorry. That's when I quietly launched phase 1 of my plan. Not revenge. Least not initially. It was about reclaiming myself. I returned to therapy. I reached out to old friends I'd sidelined just to be available for family drama. I began saying no, and made sure it echoed. I stopped sending birthday gifts. Stopped attending gatherings where I was expected to take photos but never be included in them. Then came a message from Janice, the wedding planner. She wrote me privately. "Selena, I just wanted to say what happened wasn't right. You didn't deserve that." I hadn't realized how deeply I'd needed someone to say those words. Janice and I became close. First friends, then collaborators. She opened doors. Introduced me to industry leaders who admired my design work. In a matter of months, I was remodeling luxury venues, upscale resorts, bridal suites. Even designed a honeymoon space for a well-known celebrity couple. Before I knew it, my name started appearing in bridal magazines. Not Ryan's. Certainly not my parents'. One day during a shoot, an idea came to me. Not driven by bitterness, but by poetic balance. I'd learned that my parents' house, the one they held over me for years, was in financial trouble. They were behind on property taxes, and Ryan's crypto collapse had left them exposed. Through a discreet LLC I purchased their mortgage. All legal. Every document airtight. Then I contracted a property manager to issue a formal lease. Waited. Chose Christmas Eve. That's when the letter went out. Not an eviction yet. Just a revised lease. Higher rent, no unapproved guests, strict quiet hours. And most importantly, a statement about who owned the keys now. The calls started almost immediately. I ignored them. Then came a voice note from Mom. "You're doing this over some argument. We're your parents. You wouldn't even have that penthouse if it weren't for us." And there it was again. The belief that I owed them. For surviving their neglect. For turning my silence into strength. So I did what they would never expect. I invited them over for dinner. Told them I had news. Something big. They showed up wearing clothes I could tell were out of budget. Ryan brought his fiancée, who looked like she regretted the decision halfway through the elevator ride. I had the table set to perfection. Custom silverware with my name engraved. Wine bottles with my own label. They stepped in and froze. Above the table hung a large framed canvas. My very first design sketch. The one they mocked in high school. The one they called a joke. Mom narrowed her eyes at it. "You kept that." He nodded. "I built everything from that." The meal was silent, strained. Forks scraped plates. Dad scanned the room. Ryan stared at his phone, probably tallying up the price tag. Then I handed them an envelope. Inside was the updated lease, along with a short letter. "You always said I'd never make it. Now I hold the deed to the home you once used to keep me small. Relax, I won't evict you. I'm not like you." They didn't say a word. Ryan stood up first. Said they had to go. As they left, pale and quiet, my mother turned to me and whispered, "You've changed." I met her eyes and replied, calm and clear, "No. I just stopped chasing love from people who only knew how to take." The weeks that followed were still, almost unnaturally so. No calls from my parents. No messages from Ryan. The silence, once something that haunted me like abandonment, now felt like peace. Like standing barefoot on cool earth after years sprinting across broken glass. But the story wasn't over yet. Because when you grow up constantly dismissed, there's a part of you that doesn't just want to succeed. It wants to be seen. Not for the drama. Not for the fallout. But for the real, resilient self that emerged. Beneath the wounds they gave you. So I made one final move. It began with an invitation. Not to my penthouse this time, but to a gala. Fundraiser. One that I hosted. The theme. Second chances for the forgotten. A tribute to every girl who was told she was too much. Every child who grew up watching life happen without them. I invited the whole family. My parents, Ryan, his fiancée. They showed up, curious, uncertain. It was exactly the kind of event they used to wish they could attend. Only this time I wasn't on the guest list. I was the headline. Crystal chandeliers. Flashbulbs. A red carpet backdrop that read, "The Selena Hart Foundation." My mother stared. "You started a foundation?" she asked, stunned. Smiled. "Yes. For kids who felt like I did growing up." She shifted uncomfortably. "But, we supported you." I shook my head gently. "You endured me. That's not the same." And then came the moment I'd been preparing for. During my speech I paused mid-sentence. And looked straight into the crowd. "I'd like to thank a few people tonight," I said clearly. The ones who told me I was too emotional. Who laughed at my major. Who said I'd never measure up. I saw her flinch. Dad looked at the floor. Ryan forced a chuckle. And I thanked them not for lifting me up, but for leaving me behind. Because without that emptiness, I might never have found my own strength. Then came the surprise. I unveiled a scholarship fund, fully paid tuition for young women in design, named after my high school art teacher, the only adult who ever told me my sketches mattered. The room exploded in applause. Except for my parents. They couldn't bring themselves to clap. They were too busy choking on the truth that the daughter they'd dismissed was now being celebrated for the very things they once shamed. And then came the final turn. As they were leaving, my mother came toward me teary-eyed. "We didn't know how to handle you," she said quietly. "You were always different." He nodded. "I was. Still am. That's what saved me." Then I handed her a gift bag. Inside, photo frame. Within it, the RSVP card from Ryan's wedding, where they had listed me as event photographer, no meal provided, and printed across the glass, "You never offered me a seat at your table, so I built my own." Her hands trembled. But I had already turned to greet the mayor, who had just arrived to present me with a civic award. In that moment, I wasn't the invisible sibling. I wasn't the girl behind the lens. I wasn't the family's afterthought. I was Selena Hart, founder, visionary, homeowner, and the landlord of the people, who once told me I would never make it. They taught me everything I needed to rise, by showing me everything I'd never be. And that was the most poetic ending of all. If this story moved you, subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching from.